Roland JB.
Hi there, welcome to 60 Matthews. I'm Matthew, and today I want to talk about vinyl albums and experiencing music. There are many different ways you can experience music. You can listen to it while you're running, you can have it on in the background while you're washing dishes, you can have it on in the background at a house party when you invite some guests over, when you're not in quarantine. You can dance to it at a club, you can sing to it at a karaoke bar, you can sing along to your favorite albums in your car on a long road trip. Obviously, there are a lot of ways to hear and listen to music, but vinyl albums are a special category in that spectrum. Listening to a vinyl album is very intentional. It forces you to sit next to the record player and engage in experiencing the music. Because after 15 or 20 minutes, after 4 or 5 songs, you're gonna have to flip the record over and reset the needle, or you're gonna have to change the record out and put the next one on and reset the needle. It's not a difficult process by any means, but it's not as simple and mindless as pushing the next button. Now, I love listening to music in all those scenarios that I listed before. I love listening to chill hop or lo-fi music when I'm writing, sometimes jazz, sometimes classical music. Whenever I'm cleaning, I like to listen to some really heavy, rhythmic, just headbang and get to work, that kind of stuff. Whenever I worked at the climbing gym, I like to listen more to dancey, poppy, kind of repetitious stuff to get me pumped up to finish the climb. But whenever I put on a vinyl album, I want to sit next to the record player and experience the album, giving it all of my attention. Whenever I first got my record player several years ago, I inherited a lot of older records from my parents and from my grandparents, and it was really cool to go back to their childhood and reminisce about the sounds and music that were alive whenever they were my age. It was fun to listen to them in this way, but I was just listening to it with the regular record player, which honestly is not that high in quality. However, around the same time, I installed surround sound speakers in my room so that I could watch movies and have it be more of an epic experience, and then I plugged them up to my record player just to see if it would enhance the experience. And then I bought this album, the Jimi Hendrix Experience Axis Bold as Love. This album starts out really weird and it's just a bunch of sci-fi sounds at first, but whenever you have surround sound, it starts back here and circles all the way around and just keeps on going. It was amazing, and I have never experienced any kind of album like that before. I had never really sat down and listened to Jimi Hendrix. I had obviously heard some of his songs before, but I couldn't really pick them out of a lineup. So I figured the best way to do his music justice was to sit down, close my eyes, and just experience the album. And oh boy, was I rewarded. So the first time I listened to it all the way through, I just closed my eyes and experienced it. But the second time I listened to it, I realized there is amazing artwork and content that comes with it. The lyrics inside are just really fun to read along with. But also there's this booklet with awesome pictures and a great little essay on the success of this album, kind of where their journey was at the time. And it's just a really great addition to the album. And that brings me to my next point. The artwork. If you know anything about me or about this channel, you know that I love artwork. Electric Light Orchestra was one of my dad's favorite bands. And look how epic this is! This is a really awesome record, and given the name of the band and the artwork, you kind of go into it knowing exactly what it's going to sound like. And it doesn't disappoint. This is Run the Jewels 3, and it's one of my favorite albums. The middle is pretty epic, but my favorite part is this. It's freaking gold! This is a pretty awesome album in its entirety, and I love just sitting down with it. This is an album from my all-time favorite band, The Used, and it was fun to sit down and try and recognize all of these different faces. Plus, it's got this awesome lyric booklet with all of this really cool artwork, and a whole bunch of stuff to read in the middle. And my absolute favorite part is that it's signed by all the members of the band. Sitting down and listening to this album is a very special experience for me. Not only does the artwork really add to the experience while you're sitting down with a record, but a lot of times the artwork can sell you on the record. One of my favorite activities is to go to Second and Charles or Seasick Records, which is a really awesome local record store, when we're not in quarantine, and browsing through a lot of the people and names that I don't recognize and seeing what really pops out to me. This was one of those albums, The Best of Juicy Lucy. I had never heard of Juicy Lucy before, but after looking at this and after reading this description, I was sold. And it's one of the best album purchases I've ever made. It's got a lot going on, it does a bunch of different things, and it's really fun to listen to it from beginning to end. And that brings me to my next point. Albums of any kind, not just vinyl albums, but really good albums are good from beginning to end. They're not just the same song over and over again. They are a roller coaster of an emotional journey that goes through all of these different rises and falls and all of these different genres. It's soft when it needs to be, it's hard when it needs to be, it's upbeat when it needs to be. It just takes you on this musical experience. This is definitely one of the most iconic records that practices that concept. This is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, and it's definitely a musical journey. This is very high up on my list of my favorite vinyl experiences. And this is another top favorite. Sound and Color from Alabama Shakes. It is uncanny how good this album is. How many genres they cover. They are funky when they need to be. They're country when they need to be. They're soft when they need to be. They're rocky when they need to be. And listening to it from beginning to end is just, you get transported to another world. There is not a single weak link on this album. Every song is as good as the last. And speaking of weak links on an album, that brings me to my next point. Sometimes, most of the time on an album, there are songs that you just don't like that much, that you can kind of take it or leave it, and you skip it every single time that song comes on. But with a vinyl album, it's not quite that easy. I mean, you could just pick up the needle and move it over to the next song and lay it back down, but that's a little bit more work than just pushing a button, and sometimes I'm just like, I'll just listen to the song, it's fine, it's not that bad. And sometimes those songs that I skip end up becoming my favorite songs, or at least songs that are very necessary to the album experience. This isn't a vinyl record that I have, but it was a really good example of this. Suck Out the Poison from the band He Is Legend. This is their third major release, and their first two albums are absolutely perfect all the way throughout. There is not a weak song on them at all. I can listen to them from beginning to end without once saying like, okay, well there's that one song. Every single one hits just as hard as the last. But whenever it came to Suck Out the Poison, I liked a lot of the songs, but the rest of them were just kind of take it or leave it, and I wasn't into them as much. I had listened to the full album a lot while I was cleaning or whenever I wasn't next to the music player so that I could just click the next button. I had listened to it all the way throughout enough to where now I love every single second on that album. I don't know why I wasn't as into it before. And now if I'm ever in a mood to listen to He Is Legend, I'll probably put that album on. Maybe it's because I've listened to the first two albums like 1,000 times and I've only listened to Suck Out the Poison like 500 times, so maybe the numbers just haven't caught up yet. But I found this to be true with many records, many albums, many musicians, and many artists. The more you give an artist a chance, the more rewarding it will be whenever you finally click with that artist. So I invite you and I beg you to sit down with albums. If there's a singer or a musician that you like a few of their songs, try out their album. It's probably on YouTube somewhere for free. Or maybe it's an album from a band or a singer that your parents loved or that your grandparents loved. Sit back and listen to it the way they did. Try and experience it through their ears. It can be an interesting experience to connect with them on that level. You'll probably surprise yourself, and I bet it will be a great experience for you. And since there's nothing else to do right now and you're probably running out of ideas, give it a chance. But for now, that's all I have for this week. I hope I've inspired you to get out and really listen to music, really experience it. I hope you can connect with your family and friends in this interesting way. I really, really, really hope you're safe and healthy at home. I hope you're doing as well as you can in these trying times. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.